making $44,500. 62, 44. He says also, Addie Hampton never went to crime scenes. Never did. And she had media experience. So there was more she brought to the table that Savannah didn't when she started. John Hansley, the non-law enforcement guy who went to Greenville, works for the county, said the county did not approve the positions. This guy sits there and desperately tries to make it sound like all of this was somebody else's idea. Charlotte, well, it was Joe Cornell, and they approved this, and somebody else bought the car. I got people to handle that. I really don't know how the car appeared. It just showed up one day. I said she needs a car. Somebody else decided to give her a new car. It wasn't me. Then in order to create the position, they reallocated existing funds, like took a vacancy, like there may have been some deputy or sergeant or lieutenant, some police officer, some guy who actually spends his time keeping us safe. They took his empty spot and converted that money into a new position, stripped that title off of it, lieutenant or deputy. Maybe it took 2 deputy spots, and seeing how little they get paid. Took 2 of them and jammed them together to come up with all the money that they had to pay Savannah to follow him around taking notes. They could have met in Greenville just as well for all that they did, and why wouldn't they? If you really just want to get away and you just turn the phones off. You go someplace that doesn't have a phone in the room and you turn your cell phone off, just like I turned mine off before I stood up to talk to y'all, because I don't want to be bothered. I got things to do, and this is important, and I don't want this thing going off and making my Fitbit buzz on my wrist. So I don't want to be disturbed. I turn it off. They could have done the same thing instead of going to Charlotte and spending all that money. What does he say about the defendant? Everything that you confirmed with your own eyes and ears as you watched him testify here today and yesterday, that he's arrogant and macho and smart and he's boastful and took center stage and he's got to be, the big man in the room. He saw the fireman's carry, admits, acknowledges Savannah neighbors came down later in the morning, that she was wearing sunglasses on the street, and she kept them on for a while after they went inside to start talking in the high place. Then that night, the second night there in Charlotte, they're at the Tin Roof Bar, the karaoke bar she was talking about, and all of a sudden Will says, "Hey, it's Savannah's birthday, I'm buying a round of shots." And John's like, "Okay, and now I know why we're in Charlotte. It's Savannah's birthday, and Will wants to treat her." Lewis planned the trip to Charlotte, made the arrangements, and all of the money that was budgeted to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, including the money that paid for these bills, all came from public funds, tax dollars. Major Ty Miller. This was devastating testimony. Defendant fed her the same story about Savannah's an old friend. She's known our family since she was a little girl. We just kind of brought her along. She used to babysit for us. My wife is good friends with her. That she knows all about this. Everything's cool that this very, very attractive young girl is following me around all day. Don't worry. Don't read anything into it. She's an old family friend. I've known her since she was this big. Said the defendant did tell the other men in the sheriff's office, "Stay away from Savannah. She's mine. Don't touch." Defendant told Ty that Savannah got drunk in Charlotte on the ride back. He denies he had this conversation, but Ty says on the ride back, I talked to him. He said, "Oh, God, Savannah's not feeling too well. She's hungover. She got sloshed last night in Charlotte. She got hammered." And then he goes, "Oh, wait a minute. Look, just keep that on the down low. Don't tell anybody she went to Charlotte. People aren't supposed to know that." Transparency is so important. She said says that Savannah called her and reached out to her on April the 22nd. You've got the texts in here. There's a text from Savannah, as you can see. And we tried to substantiate when there were texts to show you that what Savannah was saying isn't just Savannah saying it. There's, to the extent that it exists, we try to put documentary evidence in front of you. Hey, Ty, this is Savannah texting you from my personal phone. Can you give me a call when you have a minute? No rush. Would you want to go for a walk on Swamp Rabbit? It's beautiful outside. Yes, I already have my gym clothes on. Sweet. You want to go after we eat? We can go instead of lunch. We can go after we eat. Let's meet at Panera. Great, on my way. What is that conversation about? They go to Panera. They talk a little bit. Before they met, Ty called them and told them, Savannah wants to talk to me. I just need to give you a heads up. I don't know what this is about, but she wants to talk to me. And he's like, that's cool. That's a good idea. She can talk to you because remember, this is right in the middle of all the turmoil. She's about to quit and all this stuff is going on. And Savannah's in a turmoil and doesn't know what to do. She's confused. She wants to go talk to Ty Miller, the highest ranking female officer at the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. This young girl reached out to the one woman in authority for sex crimes to try to get some help. She started to tell her story. And at some point, Ty says, oh, she realizes when she hears the tape, the Reno tape, I can buy 2 tickets, but only 1 room. She says, oh my God, I told the sheriff we were meeting. Even Ty knew that would be significant to Savannah. And Savannah shuts down. Well, he knows we're here. Savannah's come there to tell her story to Ty to get help. But when she finds out that the sheriff knows, she shuts it down. The only opportunity she had to really seek help. Ty says there was no reason for Savannah to ever go to Reno. It's the sheriff's school. It's like where elected officials go. Like elected sheriffs, not sheriffs' personal assistants, like the Chuck Wrights, the Chad McBrides, the Kevin Tolsons. Those guys go there. It's like how to run a sheriff's department, latest cutting edge stuff that's going on, management techniques, the things that elected sheriffs do need to know. Not Savannah. She had no reason to go there. She admits and says that there was damage to the agency's reputation, how hard it was for officers to do their job, how it impacted morale, how important integrity is. Integrity is everything to law enforcement, she said. And it's true because every single day, there's more than this courtroom in Greenville County. There's magistrate courtrooms, there's municipal courtrooms, there's 6 or 7 other courtrooms on this floor and the one below it. Every single day, a police officer will walk into a courtroom like this, hold this Bible in their hand, and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And they'll sit in that chair and talk to juries just like you. And they will explain why somebody sitting over there, like that guy, is guilty for what they did. And people's liberty and reputation is on the line. And in order for us to know that justice is being done, we have to have faith in the men and the women who do this job every single day. And when you have guys like this who come in and trash the reputation of law enforcement through their horrible, selfish misconduct, it destroys their own morale and their own credibility and their ability to do the job we all need them to do. We have to have faith in them. She was also on the committee that replaced Savannah. She also heard about the Tennessee Beauty Queen. And it's a fact. Then we had Savannah. You saw her for yourself. She sits over there now. She's young and she's innocent. She's pretty. handpicked by this guy. He came and talked to her before he even ran. He said, when I run for sheriff, I want you by my side. 2 steps behind, 2 to the right. You're going to be my personal assistant. He brought Terry Coker in to say that he had offered the job to me and told me he would pay me more than I was making at the Bannister firm. What didn't he tell you? He didn't tell you what I learned from talking to Savannah, who also worked at the Bannister firm and knew that Terry's income didn't just come from that. She made a sizable chunk of change working, doing title searches as a paralegal for another firm on the side. And she told me herself about 1/3 of her income came from that. And then when she asked would she still be able to do work after hours, that kind of work, the defendant said, no, I need you to be there 24/7. You need to be accessible to me. I can't have you out there doing that. If he ever made a sincere offer, he knew she wouldn't take it because she made too much money doing this title search. And how did he know? How did he know how much money she made and how important that was to him? How did he know how important that was to Terry Coker? He knew because the company that she does the work for is owned by his own mother. That didn't come out on direct. I had to bring that out on cross. So he knew Terry Coker wasn't going to take that job because he offered her more money than she was making at Bannister, but not more money than she was making. And she couldn't afford to do that. Plus, she said herself, she's loyal to the firm. Bill Bannister's a good man. She likes working for him. He takes good care of her. And that's important. Some things are more important than money. It's important that you be respected in what you do. It's important that people treat you right, that they treat you with respect. And no matter how much money you're getting, or how nice the car you're driving, or how good of a parking spot, or you get to go shoot a machine gun with the SWAT team, there are some things that are more important than money. And your dignity and your self-respect is one of them. First 6 weeks were very exciting. She was right there in the middle of the action, and he's constantly telling her how important she is. Gosh, I couldn't do what I'm doing without you, Savannah. Whew, what would I do without Savannah? You are absolutely crucial to the mission of this organization. So smart. Savannah, you're just wonderful. And what person doesn't want to believe that? When somebody like Will Lewis, the sheriff of Greenville, this powerful man who is in charge of the largest police unit in the state of South Carolina, is telling you how wonderful you are, that's going to make you feel good. That's part of his manipulation, though. She tells him about mid-February, she says, I'm separating from my husband. We've been having problems for months now, since last fall. We've been in counseling. Things are difficult at home, and we've decided to go our own way. We've each agreed to go see other people, but that's fine, because they're seeing that the end of their relationship is in sight, and it's going to end in divorce. She tells him that, and she might as well have thrown a bucket of blood in the water. The shark started circling the minute she said she's on the market. He was circling before, but now he's like, ooh, she's a free agent. The death letter, I put that in evidence, but I haven't really talked about it. I just want y'all to look at this. It's kind of unusual. The reason I put State's Exhibit 3 in, official death letter, is because when you look, it's signed by Will Lewis. It is notarized by Jackie Cooper, sworn to her on this 17th day of February, 2017, right around the middle of February. He signs this death letter, which is supposed to help establish his succession in the event of his death, who's he designated to run the sheriff's office until the governor can appoint an interim sheriff. And who does he say? He names the person that he wants to run it. And then in there he says, number 3, I further request that Savannah Neighbors maintain her position as the administrative coordinator to the sheriff. He felt necessary to tell her, hey, I'm going to look out for you. I get killed, baby, I'm going to look out for you from the grave. Starts talking about her personal life, asking questions about her marriage, making inappropriate comments to her. They go to Clemson. Sheriff McBride is there. On the way back, he says, "Hey, I told Chad McBride that he needed to get himself a Savannah." Apparently, Sheriff McBride's a little more savvy than Will Lewis, because he said, "If I got a Savannah, I'd be in trouble. Nobody could do this. What are you, crazy? I mean, who's going to hire a 22-year-old girl to follow you around and be a sheriff? It looks like heck." Also on the trip back from Clemson, we learned for the first time, he tells Savannah, "Hey, look, I haven't told my wife about you going to Charlotte. Charlotte trip's already been kind of like discussed. It's in the offing. Maybe the date hasn't been set, but they're going. And Savannah's a key part. She's going to be going to Charlotte with me. But I don't want my wife to know about it. It would just cause trouble." What did he say when he testified? "I never talked about any problems with my wife until that first conversation in the driveway. The one with the crickets, or I've been told now they might be tree frogs. But the ones with the noise in the background when they're standing out in the driveway, that was the first time I ever talked about anything." He's telling her, "No, don't tell my wife." And he admits that he said that. He admits he didn't tell his wife. On the way there, he goes to the house. She thought it was unusual. He walked straight into her bedroom. He said, "I need to use the bathroom." But instead of using the guest bathroom, like most people would, went into her bedroom and into her master bathroom, which she thought was odd and made her a little uncomfortable. On the way in, he's talking about, "I just want to get there, put a ball cap on, kick back and drink a few beers." And in Charlotte, the liquor bottle, I couldn't do a better job than Deputy Solicitor Willie Thompson in highlighting how ridiculous it is that he felt the need to send the liquor up to Savannah's room, and how transparent his true motive was as to putting that liquor bottle in her room. All he's doing is creating an excuse for him to have to go back there later in the evening after they've had a few drinks, when they've gone out on the town. After he's taken her to the lobby bar and he's pushing drinks on her, telling her, "Why are you babysitting that drink?" He wants her to be good and loose by the time they get home. Back to the hotel, and he's going to pull that bottle out of her room, fill it up with bourbon, and say, "Hey, come on over here and have a seat next to me on the couch. I'll talk to you." Bar, the Irish pub, he orders rounds of shots. According to John Hansley, he's arrogant. He's changed now. Fireman's carry. Almost drops her, she says. They go back to the hotel, and just like she feared, she uses the liquor bottle as the excuse that it was intended for. "I need to go up and get that thing from your room." "You want a nightcap?" 1 o'clock in the morning, and then he starts in talking about how his life is so hard, so stressful being sheriff. Things just aren't good at home. My wife, it's just bad. No sex. She's always on me. I'm working all the time. Poor me. You need another topper on that drink? Says he never talked about that, though. Never said anything about how hard his life was and how terrible his marriage was. But listen to this.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, it just seems like, I guess later on you probably regret it. But, I mean, hell. I guess if I found somebody decent, it'd have to be tired. I mean, I need a 6-foot tall blonde. You know what I mean?
Why?
Something totally different. I'm just,
6 foot tall.
Well, don't get that far into it yet. It's not totally. It's not totally non-repairable, so don't go that far yet.
No, it's not. It's not totally nothing's totally non-repairable. I just think it's probably, there's no horizon, but it's inevitable. I mean, my personality, you know, her personality, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. I mean, but it's okay. It is what it is. Deal with it, push on.
My personality, her personality, especially his personality. Now, we have two competing versions of what took place in Charlotte. Savannah testified from the witness stand, and I want you to go back in your mind to Tuesday afternoon. Go back in your mind and remember Savannah Nickerson sitting on this witness stand over here. I want you to assess her credibility. I want you to think about what she said and how she said it. I want you to ask yourself, did that look like a woman who was in pain? Did that sound like somebody who was agonizing about having to sit in front of a room full of strangers and talking about something horrible that happened to her? If she's faking, then she needs to be in Hollywood. That was real. It was a gut punch. It was hard to watch. It was brutal, and it was genuine. Picture her, and now fast forward to yesterday afternoon and this morning, when he took the stand, and ask yourself, who's credible? Who do you believe? Whose testimony had the ring of truth? I won't detail what she said. I don't need to. You remember what she said. How about the defendant's testimony? We need to go through what he said. Because his testimony didn't have the ring of truth. First of all, he just flat out admitted that he was pursuing an adulterous relationship with public money by offering Reno to Savannah. Well, let me go back. I think he did say that yesterday afternoon, unwittingly. But then go to this morning when Deputy Solicitor Thompson asks him again, and he just keeps saying, that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. And then we took a little bit of a break, and I huddled up with Willie, and I said, you know, he never really actually said that's what he was doing. He just kept equivocating and trying to put some kind of spin on it. And said, that's what it sounds like. I said, okay, nail him down. Tell him you don't want to know what it sounds like. Ask him flat out, is that what you were doing? And what did he say? Yes. That's what it sounds like. I mean, the guy just doesn't stop. He can't help himself. He admits he's the sheriff, he's a public official in public office, and has power over his employees. All of these things are things you need to find in order to convict him of misconduct in office. These are things we have to prove, and now you don't have to worry about whether they're true or not, because he's admitted that they're true. He's admitted that he was pursuing an adulterous relationship in Reno with public money when he offered to take Savannah there. That's what he was trying to do. So that much is established, and that he's the sheriff of Greenville County. He's a public official in a public office. He admitted sexual harassment, that he violated his own policy. He said he couldn't quite say he would have, but we gave him 2 examples, and he said, I probably would have fired myself if I had been supervising somebody who did what I did, who lied and sexually harassed somebody, or did something grossly inappropriate sexually. I would, yeah. And we showed him 2 examples where he actually did do that. He fired people for doing what he did. Somebody lied, he fired them. Somebody sent pictures of themselves ejaculating to a female deputy, and he said, I fired him. It was a hard decision, though. I gotta wonder, maybe that says more about him than anything, that he had to struggle over whether to fire somebody who would send pictures of themselves ejaculating to a female deputy. Brock Wise, at the beginning, speaking for the defendant, said, Mr. Wise said, this man stood up in front of the public and he took responsibility for what he did. It was a moral failing, but by God, he did the honorable thing, and he stood up there and he said, I did this and I did wrong, and it was a moral failing, and that took courage. He did the right thing. Like, okay, yes, he may have crossed the line, but by golly, he did the honorable thing in the end, and he took responsibility. What did we come to find out? When did he take responsibility? In March, when he did it? In April, when she's leaving the office in tears? May, June, July, August, when the blog is published? And everybody's going, what? Did she leave what? No, because right then, it's just a blog. It's just words on a web page. Just an accusation. Nothing to back it up. Did he take responsibility then? Did he show us his honor? What a decent, fine man he is and how he's changed. Did he do that? No, he still didn't do that. Sometime in September or October, he told his command staff, a small group of people, that he did in fact have a dalliance with this young girl, but it was all consensual and fine, and nothing really, no big problems. It was just a lapse in moral judgment. But I'm not going to tell my wife. When did he finally stand up at that podium? After she files a lawsuit and attaches those recordings to it, and he's got no other choice. He was cornered up. There's no honor in that. That's not stepping up and doing the right thing. That's being pushed into a corner and being forced to do it. And then to stand up here and take credit for it like he's some kind of good guy, it's laughable. He admitted that Charlotte wasn't necessary. They could have done all that in Greenville. And then after spending a lot of time trying to establish that, oh, this meeting went on for a long time, Savannah said it pretty much ended after lunch, we had to remind him of his previous sworn testimony in this matter, where he said, oh yeah, we went and pretty much met a little bit, but we were done by 2 or 3 on the second day, and we all went and took a nap. And what does the lunch receipt show? They're done at like 2:10, 2:15. So by the time they walked back to the hotel, there wasn't a whole lot of time to meet. Savannah's timeline was right. Savannah wasn't needed in Charlotte. What did she really do? She carried the papers down and gave them out to everybody. She just compiled what all these division commanders gave her, stapled it all together and handed it out. She has no in-depth budgetary knowledge. Didn't even take notes. The one thing he harped on was so important to him. Why he needed this personal assistant. Somebody follow me around, take notes, keep track of everything I do and say. Everything all these important people I talk to say to me. No notes from this important budgetary trip, though. When Savannah doesn't show up for the first meeting, did anybody find it was strange that he didn't say anything about that? They're in Charlotte for this out-of-town unusual budget meeting. They've never done it before. And the person who's got all the materials doesn't show up for the 9 o'clock meeting. So what does he do? Bupkis. He doesn't call. He doesn't go up to her room and knock on the door. Savannah, are you all right? Nothing. He doesn't say he does anything. At about 11, that's when the coffee text went through. It's over here too. Like I said, we try to give you the text to substantiate when things happened and show you that this really did happen. You'll see there's a text in there about something to do with some kind of macchiato thing. It says about 11:07. That's when the coffee order was made. So we know from 9 to 11:07, Savannah Neighbors isn't downstairs, and all these important materials are up there in her room, not being used. And he's not looking for her or the notes or unconcerned with where she is or what her condition might be. And why might that be? Why might he not be concerned about her and why she's not down for this meeting? Because he knows what her condition is. He was in the room with her the night before doing what he did. He knows how he left her. He doesn't need to go check on anything. He doesn't need anybody to tell her how she's doing. He doesn't need to ask her because he knows damn good and well how she is. Alcohol to Savannah's room, going to the room to get it, the nightcap, that was just a series of bad decisions that fell in line. And then, this one I'm going to get out. The 355 text my eyes are old and the light's dim. I should have brought my cheaters, but here it is right here. It just says me. And this is State's Exhibit 6. It's from Will Lewis to Savannah Neighbors. Now says Addie Hampton, but you've heard Addie got Savannah's phone and she left and he changed the name on the phone. That's why it says Addie Hampton, but that was Savannah's phone at the time. Addie didn't even start until June, and this is in March. It says me at 3:55 a.m. He says he didn't go to her room at all the second night. Why is he sending a text that says me? And for the first time in the history of this case, what does he say on the stand? Oh, she had an iPad. Maybe she sent herself that text from her iPad. Nobody's ever heard that before, ever. First time he suggests that. And he doesn't explain why would she send herself a text at 3:55 in the morning that says me? Because she's plotting some devious, cunning plan to undo him? Well, I would have said more than me if I had that kind of power. If I had his phone and I wanted to set this guy up, I could have done a better job than saying me at 3:55. Why was this text really sent? You know why it was sent? Because at 3:55 on the 14th floor of the Hyatt Place Hotel on March the 9th, 3:55 a.m., there was a guy standing outside Savannah Neighbors' room going, Savannah, open up. Savannah, open up. Can't make too much noise because it's a hotel. Come on, Savannah. Savannah. That's why that text is there. He says he didn't tell his wife about Charlotte. Difficult decision, I talked about that. The real interesting thing, though, is in all this, as much as we've talked about whether it was consensual or not, I told you at the beginning, it really doesn't matter, because it doesn't. It really doesn't matter. Suppose, let's just make something up for a minute, hypothetical for you to consider. Suppose that Will Lewis had taken office and a couple of weeks in, he goes down to the file room in the basement, and down there in the file room is some very attractive young 22-year-old girl whose job it is to file folders. And he goes to her and says, "What are you doing down here, sweetie? It's all dark and lonely down here. What, you don't want to come out in the sunlight? I got a better job for you if you'd like." And she went, "Really? That'd be great. I'm making $25,000 a year down here putting files away. What are you talking about? Well, you could follow me around and be the sheriff's personal assistant. Take notes, 2 steps back and 2 steps to the right. And she went, ooh, that sounds great. And I'm going to pay you a bunch more money. Give you a car and all kinds of things. That's wonderful. And then he'd have just walked up to her and said, and here's the catch. In addition to those job duties, I need you to take care of certain needs that I have. And she said, check, no problem. I'm good with that. Happy to do it. Let me know when. That's still a crime. That's still misconduct in office. He'd still be guilty. So it doesn't matter. She didn't consent. But it doesn't matter. You can't do that. You can't use public money to try to have sex with employees. You just can't do that. I find myself mystified that I feel the need to even stand here and explain that. Surely this is common sense. You just can't do that. Everybody seems to understand it, but will. What is misconduct in office? There's 2 charges, and they look similar, but they're different. They sound similar, but they're different. Misconduct in office is any public official. The judge is going to charge you on the law, and I'm going to try to explain it to you in common everyday language, but the judge's explanation of what the law is the law. That's the law you have to follow. I'm just going to try to break it down and help you make sense of it, but the judge will charge you at the end of the case. Misconduct in office is any public official. It doesn't have to be an elected official. It could be the guy who's in charge of the maintenance shop over at the South Carolina Department of Transportation, who's in charge of the tractors and the bulldozers and all the heavy equipment over there, keeping it maintained and all that. And then at night, he goes back, uses his key, goes in and gets a backhoe, and goes over and does some side job and makes, $2,000 helping some guy clear his lot, and then takes it back and puts it in the thing. That's misconduct in office. He's using public property for personal gain. And there he's actually making money. But it isn't necessary that the thing you get, the benefit you derive from your misconduct, be financial. It could be other things too. You could be, given access to a beach house, which has kind of got money, but it's really more like, somebody tells you, hey, you do something for me, help me out with this case I have, solicitor. I've got this fella, a friend of mine, charged him, but if you can work something out and give him a good, sweet deal, I got a place down on Polly's. Just let me know what week you want to use it. If I did that, misconduct. Can't do it. That's me using my office to get some benefit for me. It could be that. It could be something like, sex. That would be misconduct. That's a benefit for women. So any public official, doesn't have to be elected, willfully, they must intentionally do this. Because these people typically are doing something intentional, and the law requires for misconduct in office that it be intentional, that it be a willful act, a deliberate, intentional act. They willfully and dishonestly fail to do their duty for a corrupt purpose, breaching duties imposed on that office, like duties of good faith and accountability. When the judge is going to charge you, charge over here. Here we go. For example, the judge is going to charge you that every law enforcement officer, every police officer, has an inherent duty to obey the law and enforce it. That's just naturally part of the job that they've assumed. You have to obey the law yourself and enforce any violations of the law when you see them. That duty requires service to the public it's all of us, of the highest fidelity, a refusal to be influenced by corrupting motives, as well as honesty, integrity, and good faith. These are all duties that are just baked into the job of being a cop. The second charge, which I said sounds similar, but is different, is misconduct of a public officer. All right? This law says that if an elected official, that means an elected official is a person who is elected by the public for a certain term in office for a certain jurisdiction, like, say, the sheriff of Greenville, sheriff of Greenville County for a term of 4 years, which you heard is what his term is. Performs acts of official misconduct, habitual negligence, corruption, fraud, or oppression. They have violated the law. They have an obligation not to do those things. So if they're an elected official and they're engaging in misconduct or habitual negligence, which I'll tell you now, this case isn't about habitual negligence. Not at all. These are intentional acts. Corrupt, fraud, oppression, those are the things we're talking about. Fraud, in that he has this money that's given to him for one purpose, but he's using it for another. And not wanting to tell anybody about it, despite his love of transparency. Oppression, that means using the authority of your office in an oppressive manner, to cause other people to do things that you want them to do by using the authority of your office. Say, for example, if you told a bunch of police officers, nobody better touch Savannah Neighbors, she's off limits, nobody asks her out, nobody dates her. And say you're a police officer like Chad Ayers, and you like her, and you want to go and date her, you want to have a relationship with her. And you have to do it in secret. You have to hide your car in her garage. You can't tell anybody about it. You can't go out in public, because if somebody sees you, you could lose your job because you're intimidated. You're afraid because the guy who runs the agency that you work at has made it clear that nobody is to go out with her, nobody is to touch her. That would be oppressive. He has a right to associate and go out with who he wants, and so does she. And you can't use your power to make people do things they don't want to do just to satisfy your own personal interests. As I said, he's not on trial for assault. He owed a duty to the people of Greenville, and you can assume that it's consensual for the sake of argument, because it doesn't matter. That's a side issue. It's a red herring trying to distract your attention. I, again, refer you to a comparison of the testimony of Savannah Neighbors and Will Lewis, and invite you to consider for yourself whose testimony is faithful and whose isn't. You still can't use public money to carry on an adulterous relationship. You can't use your office to prevent people from seeing her, and you can't threaten to change people's jobs when they don't want to sleep with you, which is what he did to her. It's on tape. You don't want to go to Reno? Okay, there's going to have to be some changes. How do we know what Will Lewis intended to do? Well, you've got the Palmetto Ale House campaign event. She's testifying to this. There's no tape, but she says that he pushed alcohol on her again like he did in Charlotte. He drove her back to the law enforcement center, tried to kiss her. He's like, you want to go back to your place? She says, no, why don't you go home to your wife? And he gets mad, starts hitting the steering wheel and cussing her. He's the sheriff. He's her boss. He's been so nice to her up till now. This is emotional abuse. He's being manipulative. He's rude to her, cussing her in front of other people, belittling her, making her feel bad, pushing her into a place where she's afraid to say anything he doesn't want to hear because she doesn't want to have to deal with the fallout. So it compromises her own ability to react to what he's doing to her. What else did he do? Shows up at her house. She says, and you can look at the text, no, I'm good. My mom's here. I got 5 different kinds of medicine I want to take them. You don't need to come. It's clear. She doesn't want him. No matter how awesome Will Lewis thinks he is, and he clearly thinks he is, no matter how sexy and brave and braggadocious or whatever he was saying, he's a man's man. Whatever, she ain't buying it. She doesn't want any part of Will Lewis. She is not attracted to him. But despite her efforts to stave him off, what does he do? He buys groceries. That's his excuse for coming by her house. All the way over in Spartanburg, remember? She lives, like, he's in Greenville. He drives all the way over to Spartanburg to deliver groceries and juice and whatever. While he's there, she's got the flu, and he's arguing with her and starting a fight about the business at the ale house and how they've been treating each other and how he's been treating her and whatever. She cries. She says he softens up a little bit and then just picks her up and carries her to bed, tucks her in and kisses her on the forehead. By this time, she's afraid to reject him. She's terrified of this guy. She's starting to wonder, what in the world am I in? What else did he do? He calls her when she's hiking with a friend in Anderson, an old high school friend. Like, it's too soon for you to start dating. She didn't even say she was dating. She's just with a guy that she knew in high school. But he's like already brushing, no. You can't be seeing other guys. She meets her husband on Easter, April 16th of 2017. She doesn't say she's with her husband. She just says she's with her family. He laughs like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, whatever. Like he knows better. And she starts to go, well, that's weird. How would he know to do that unless he's like watching me or something? How does he know I'm not really with my mom and dad, that I'm with my husband? And he starts saying, hey, what have you got to hide? Why can't you show me your personal cell phone? Let me look and see what's going on in your life. We need to trust each other. He's like gaslighting her. But you don't just have to rely. See, most cases that I prosecute like this, I have to use that kind of evidence to try to help show you. You look at what they did and then try to deduce what they intended from that. But in this case, this thing is beautiful because you don't just have to look at what he did. Savannah punched record on her phone and you get to hear for yourself what he intended. You get to hear the naked, brazen corruption and selfishness and manipulation, every nasty, stinking, wretched thing that this pathetic man did. You don't have to guess, because it's all here.
I don't want you to miss out, quite honestly. I won't go out. If you're not going to go, there's really, I love Brandon, but there's no fun to be had in going out there. There's just no fun.
Yeah, it's no good going to Reno without you, baby. I don't care what you're talking about. I'm not going to class. Are you kidding me? I just want to go with you. Brandon, yeah, he's a nice guy and all, but he's a dude. He kind of smells funny. It's one thing to go out there and drink a few beers with somebody, but I really want you, honey. In case there's any mystery.
Well, the probability of us staying in the same room is probably pretty high. You do understand that, though, right?
The probability of us staying in the same room. Remember, he told her, Greenville can fly us both out there. They can only afford one hotel room. What? Does he think she's an idiot? Greenville can only afford one hotel room. They can afford 2 airline tickets. But the wealthiest county in South Carolina can't swing another hotel room in Reno. Not that she needs to be there in the first place, because he has no business there, but it's stupid. And you want to know about his transparency? Here's Will Lewis on transparency, folks.
Nora doesn't even take time off of your schedule when you're out.
Nora doesn't take time off
there's no paper trail for to share school together. It's more of a hassle for the two of us to be staying in the same hotel room, or same hotel, period, guy, girl, from the same agency that know each other, than anything else. So we just don't tell people shit. Like, Ty will tell you, I'm sure, that she will say, the less people know, the better off they are. But people don't need to know. That's why I don't tell people anything. So, I mean, but again, I'm not trying to, this conversation is not meant to change your mind. This doesn't change anything. I'm just telling you that, okay, how about this? When Shannon went with us to Charlotte, nobody knows except for Joe and John and us that Shannon went. Nobody else knows.
I could keep going with that. You remember the testimony. You remember the tape. The first time I heard it, you heard it. And folks, all these recordings, all 11 of them are on a USB stick. And we'll bring you back out here and play any of them you want to hear. All of them as much as you can stand till your ears bleed. You can hear any of it. I'm just excerpting some of them because it gets a little tedious. It's funny now that you've actually heard him testify when you listen to the tapes. A little bit different take on him. This one here makes crystal clear what he was trying to do. He's admitted it, but...
No, Savannah, I want you to go because, I just want us to be able to roll around a little bit. just me and you, nobody else. I want time away. I want to do myself. And I want us to just be able to sit around and drink on the beach and on company time. And
I just want to roll around with you and drink on company time. Ladies and gentlemen, you will never, ever hear such brazen corruption, such absolutely naked self-service again in your life. This is a once-in-a-lifetime golden opportunity. The mask is pulled off, and Will Lewis is exposed for exactly what he is. And they said there wasn't any talk about Charlotte, what happened in Charlotte, and that it was all consensual.
if you're not cool with that, because you know how I am. So, if you're not cool with that and you're uncomfortable with it, then...
What do you mean by you know how I am?
Well, you know how, I was in Charlotte, you know how I am. I mean, I'll go out, I'll turn a few up, I'll get silly.
I'll turn a few up and get silly. She was hitting on him according to his story, but he turned a few up and got silly.
You got all of me.
Yes, indeed. I think we've all seen all of him. And then, this is corruption too, and this is misconduct in office, because despite overcoming all of her objections, and she's gently trying to tell him no, because she doesn't want to make him mad, remember? Otherwise it's an exciting job to work at the sheriff's office. Law enforcement's exciting. There's a reason crime shows are the most popular shows on TV. People are fascinated by it. But you can't, at the end of the day, deny that Savannah Neighbors did not want to go. She had no interest, no matter what. She did not want to go to Reno with this man over here. She is not interested in him. He is not appealing to her. She has no desire to be with him, no desire to sleep with him. And what happens when that's finally made clear to Will Lewis?
Then you're probably going to be in a position where we're going to be fine. Yes, there'll be some addendums, amendments to what my original expectations were.
Starting to talk about going to be some changes, but what does that mean, really?
There'll be some changes. We'll have to make some changes.
What kind of changes do you have to make? Things have been great these past 2 weeks.
They have been. But it's just future things. So that I'm not going to take you places with me.
I'm not going to take you places with me. All the stuff that you enjoy about the job, we're going to be going on exciting trips with other people, but you don't get to go. Have sex with me? You can come. No sex? Get back in the file room, sweetie.
Can I explain to you at least why it's making sense to you?
This is, I won't play the whole thing, but this is the part where he's talking about how Ty and these other women just strip down like this is all normal. He's trying to make her think she's crazy for not doing what he wants to do. Like, everybody knows this. This is just law enforcement. You want to be in law enforcement, honey? This is what people do. Girls strip down all the time. All those normal barriers about men and women, that's all nonsense in law enforcement. We're all one big happy family. We ride off to Reno and roll around and drink beers and have sex. That's kind of part of what we do. What did Ty Miller say? No, that's not true. None of that's true. He's just gaslighting this girl, making her think she's crazy for not doing what he wants to do. Like, she's the one that's different and the rest of the world thinks she's nuts. This is further example. This was played for you, but I'm not sure you heard it. I want to make sure you did. Sure.
I mean, I've like I told you earlier, I've spent more time thinking about repairing this relationship, this friendship, more than anything. And I just can't do it anymore because everything I do is wrong in one way or another. And I'm not gonna, I just can't do it. So, it would absolutely destroy me. I mean, it really would. I told you, and I mean it. I mean what I said. I would trade any one of my command staff members, all of my command staff members, for you.
I would trade all of my command staff members, all those veteran law enforcement officers who gather weekly to sit around the table to decide how to keep people safe with their years of experience. None of them are more important than 22-year-old Savannah Neighbors, the note taker. That's the kind of manipulation and abuse that she was subjected to.
What is it that's gone too far?
This relationship.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's like every time I turn around, you're jealous of something, or you're like, it's like I'm not even going to be able to have a personal life.
What am I jealous of?
We sat there in your freaking office, and you were talking about how I would be jealous of my next door.
I think you know jealous of me. Yeah, there would be. But I mean, that's just. I mean, that's. Yeah, see, that's not cool.
No.
Because I don't think you quite understood that. Because I mean, that's kind of stalkerish. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of strange if you put it that way.
I don't know what other way you could put it. I mean, you have this whole secret, like, book of ways that you can put things. Like, I don't know if there's any other way to put the fact that you would be jealous if I got a boyfriend and started dating. Like,
Okay,
there's no other way to take it.
How about this? Let me explain to you like this. I would be jealous of my daughter's boyfriend for taking time away from daddy. I'd be jealous of that. Does that put it in perspective for you?
No, I have no idea where that's going.
That's what she's dealing with. That's her boss. That's the sheriff of Greenville County. He tells her that she works at his pleasure. Work at the pleasure of the sheriff. That means I hire, I fire. You come, you go. If I don't like you, you leave.